What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the Wise Take NFL DFS Wise stream for week 16. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And I'm joined by a GOAT, a true OG in his own right, Patio Joe. You can find him on Twitter at Patio Joe Ref. Joey, just me and you, Paulie. Paulie did give me a warning a few hours ago that he overindulged in the festivities and the food, and so he said he was going to set an alarm to wake up to do the show. It seems like that attempt was unsuccessful. So Joey, just like the first lick show, my man, it's me and you, bro.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, last week I tapped out. I was like, can't do it. It's too crazy. Life around the house is too crazy. So we can understand the 8Ds sometimes is working overtime, and Christmas,
Yeah.
he needed to have a night off.
He needed it, man. He needed it. But obviously, if you're subscribed to wisestake.com, he should have an article out by Sunday talking about his for the GPP breakdown he writes. So all good, all good. Everybody's entitled to it. With that said, Merry Christmas, nation. Those of you who celebrate the holiday, and if not, happy holidays in general. It's around the Hanukkah time, right? We have New Year's coming, so either way, it's a holiday for everybody in some right. Holiday season, if you will. Joey, you as well, man. Merry Christmas, bro.
Merry Christmas to you, man. This is like Christmas number 4 or 5 together, I think.
Yeah, man. I know. It's funny how time flies, and this was, knock on wood, my last Christmas. I mean, my wife's last Christmas without a little kid running around. So, we'll see. It was a quarantine one. It was a different one. I mean, we went and saw family, but with the masks and all that different kind of stuff, it's just a different time. But you know what? One thing that I think we've always prided ourselves on here at the Wise Take Nation is, we make the best of whatever situation we have. Lemonade out of lemons, man, all day. That's just what else? What else can you do? It's life. You move along, you roll along. No bad blood. Just keep it rolling, keep it moving, and do the dirty before the dirty's done to you.
That's right.
That's it, baby.
Let's do it.
That's it, baby. We have a 3-game slate. Obviously, we're not going to talk about that on this show. Not doing a show for the 3-game slate, but I did write our projections for the 3-game slate are available for download at wisestake.com if you remember. I also wrote a core plays article. Actually, really liked the 3-game slate on Saturday. But I also like the main slate on Sunday. We're about to talk about, Joe. We have 10 games, which is the least amount of games we've seen all season, I believe, on a slate. And we don't have a ton of those marquee studs. We got a couple at receiver, but at running back, we don't have our Derrick Henrys. We don't have the Alvin Kamaras. A little bit of a different week, so I'm excited to hear where you've kind of landed on. We did the first look and kind of went game by game. Now I'm curious to hear where Joey's landed on. And we're still waiting on a lot of news. We've gotten some unexpected news, so 2020 continues to do its thing. That being said, Joe, it is about time we go ahead and roll up in this thing. Nation, appreciate those of you hanging out with us live. Hopefully you had an awesome Christmas. And a good way to end the Christmas night or celebration is to hit that like button if you're watching on YouTube. And make sure you subscribe to the channel, notifications bell on. Don't miss out on any of the free content we do on the YouTube and Twitch and the Podbean and the iTunes. We're everywhere. We'll do the dirty. Joe, let's talk about quarterbacks, though. We'll break it up. Are you looking to spend up anywhere?
Yeah, I mean, it's a week where, you said we don't have the high price running backs, but we still have Mahomes, Lamar, Watson, Herbert, and now Jalen Hurts, as well as Russell. I feel like almost all of the ownership will go to those 6 guys. I feel like the cash game quarterback right now is Jalen Hurts. I don't mind it if you want to go with that. I feel like he's got, I mean, it's a little bit too much to just expect a 40 burger two weeks in a row. But the rushing upside that he provides, on top of the fact that the matchup against the Cowboys is really good. It's a game that could shoot out. It's in Dallas. I mean, it's an NFC East battle, so just the public just likes to go there. So his price is at 8,200. He's priced around the same, with Herbert, who I think makes a great pivot Last time against these Broncos, he threw for like almost 300 yards and 2 or 3 touchdowns. And now they have their 3 corners out from like the last meeting. So Herbert at 8,200 is a great pivot off of that. Deshaun Watson, I mean, he's got a great matchup. The Cincinnati secondary we know can be beat. Don't be like thinking that like, because what you saw on Monday is like a huge deal. Um, Lamar is fine as a pivot. I think he's playing really well. They need to win everything. And the only thing that makes me like pause on Mahomes is that I feel like if the game is in hand after 3 quarters, they're gonna just take the pedal off the metal, and pull all the starters, because one thing Andy Reid does is he manages the reps of the starters going into the playoffs, and all they need to do is win this game, and they get home field advantage throughout the playoffs and the first round bye. So it's tough on Mahomes. I feel like you can get a piece of that game, but I don't think you need Mahomes at 9,400. So I feel like right now it's like Hurts, Herbert, or Watson are the guys that I'm looking at.
Yeah, I think I'm in a similar boat with Mahomes. Mahomes projects really well for us, just with DVP, everything incorporated. So it's tough to sit here and say like, like Mahomes, to say anything other than Mahomes is my favorite quarterback. I mean, he projects for us for the best raw points by far. But I have concerns with that game staying close also. I'm also concerned with the motivation factor. Atlanta is on the road. Kansas City's defense has not been as bad as it was last year. So I'm also a little bit nervous in regards to that game staying competitive enough to where Mahomes will hit a ceiling. Obviously, it's a phenomenal matchup, and if we're going to have some value. So if you feel comfortable reaching him, playing some Washington football team receivers or whatever it is, doing what you got to do to get him in, by all means, like do it. But he's not actually my favorite quarterback. I think if I was going to spend up, I'm with you. I think it's more like Justin Herbert against the depleted Denver secondary. Lamar Jackson, the matchup is a boost. We know that since Bradbury's been out for the Giants, so we'll check the status of him obviously in game time. But since he's been out, it's just been bad. So the Giants secondary has just been bad. We saw Baker just completely slice him up most recently. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm fine with a lot of these guys, but I don't know. I think Hurts and Mahomes. Like if I am going to spend up, it's Hurts and Mahomes, and I'm not totally sold that I'm even going to spend up because I think that, like you said, Joe, I think we're going to see a lot of the ownership with a lot of these dudes. What about the mid tier?
Yeah, the mid tier, I feel like it's Baker Mayfield is probably like Baker Mayfield and Jared Goff. I really like Baker because he's going against your Jets. They have, the Jets basically, they blew their first round pick. They're hoping maybe, the Bears can maybe lose against the Jags on the road. But I feel like Baker Mayfield, he's been like the number 3 quarterback in football, fantasy football, the last 3 weeks at 7,600. I love it. Jared Goff, it's more of just like a hunch that like he was in a sweet spot last week. People played him. He was popular, and he busted. Now he's in like a must-win situation against a bad secondary on the road, and it kind of reminds me of the game against Tampa, where they went into Tampa and beat the Buccaneers when they probably shouldn't or wasn't playing like they should. I feel like Goff plays better sometimes in more difficult matchups and plays down to his competition. So I like Goff because I don't think people are going to go there. The matchup is beatable. The game could shoot out. It's a divisional game. And then, if you're doing a lot of lineups, I won't get there because I'm not, but if you're doing a lot of lineups, you got to think Ben Roethlisberger, if he has anything left in him, this is the week that he's going to show it after being embarrassed the last 3 weeks. They have not played well at all. They have a winnable game against a very good Colts team, but I think they can win this game. Ben could be okay. And I'll stop there.
Yeah, so I agree with you, and part of the reason I'm not like dying, like at the beginning of the week, I was all over looking at Justin Herbert and like, oh yeah, I'm spending up my quarterback. But the mid tier, I think, is sneaky deep because I don't think it's going to carry a lot of ownership. But there are some pretty significant plays. You mentioned Big Ben. We like to play him at home. This is a perfect spot for him to kind of get back on his feet. This is like a potential playoff matchup here. And Pittsburgh got to win. This isn't. I know they were undefeated until they lost 3 straight games or whatever it was. So they got to win. The Cleveland's on their ass. And the Ravens are on their ass. Like they're at that position. I think you mentioned Baker Mayfield. He's been just red hot. Dude is red hot right now. Just completely just feeling himself. Jets secondary is terrible. I do think that the Jets they kind of changed schematically a little bit, but more than anything, I think you and I agree, Joe, that the Rams, that was just a look ahead situation, right? They didn't take the Jets seriously, thought they can just kind of get by, and it didn't happen. I think it was an anomaly. I expect Baker Mayfield to go out there and do dirties. And my favorite tournament quarterback, and I specify tournaments because of the low floor, is Jared Goff, who you talked about. I honestly, we know Jared Goff's been decent, and there's been those funny things, right? One of those funny things was the splits this year with Jared Goff. For whatever reason, he was just a lot more fantasy friendly on the road. Matter of fact, if you look at what he's done on the road, I think he's only had one game where he scored less than 20 fantasy points on the road. So I love Jared Goff, and I think we have enough value to where instead of going like to grab these crazy studs at a receiver just to grab them, we can grab 2 of his pretty good receivers, best receivers, and use enough value to kind of stack up that game in general. So I think that's one of the sneakier games, Joe. I'm glad you mentioned it. And he's 5'9" on DraftKings. I will be looking to get a lot of him in tournaments. Anybody in Value Town that you feel comfortable spending down on or considering?
I mean, we'll save those for the pick section. Yeah, Value Town, no. I'm not going to go there this week. I mean, people might say that Drew Lock at 6,800 has a pulse against, the Chargers secondary, which I could see, but I feel like you'd want just like kind of pieces of that offense, not the quarterback. I'd rather just go the quarterback on the other side and stack that game. But that's it. There's nobody in there that I want.
Yeah, I think like you'd mentioned, if I'm gonna pay down, I'm paying way down. Like Goff is 5'9", so I guess technically you consider him a pay down, and he'd be my favorite by far. Outside of that, if I was gonna really pay down, it would be to these 5K guys on DraftKings, Drew Lock or Sam Darnold. Neither of them are pretty. I got nothing good to say about either of them really, other than they have good matchups, right? Cleveland's defense, I'm not sold on because Colt McCoy was moving the ball. He just couldn't get in the end zone, but they were moving the ball. Sam Darnold was able to get it done against the Rams, so I guess before I laugh, I should acknowledge that. But none of these guys touch a main team. Like I said, a Goff is the lowest I go, with a loaded mid-tier and some pretty good options up top. What about at running back? I would say talk about the spend-ups, but there are none. But I guess take me down to around, like 7K or so?
Well, on FanDuel, there's one running back at 9K, Nick Chubb. At the beginning of the week, I really wasn't into him. I was like, just way too expensive for a guy that just doesn't, get as much volume as he wants. It's in a matchup against the Jets that are basically a pass funnel defense, which makes me like Baker more. However, when there is this like top 5 defensive tackle that the Jets have, Quinnen Williams, that is the reason why their run defense is so, good, is now on IR. It's like, okay, well, Browns are just going to want to run the ball with Chubb. They'll be able to take advantage of it. The only thing that really now makes me pause is that their rookie tackle, was it Worcester? The rookie tackle was put on the COVID list. They still say he has a chance to play, but right now he's on the COVID list, which means he's probably just a close contact somebody. So be checking to that. If the rookie offensive tackle is active, then I say Chubb is one of the best plays. Just the game script should be in his favor. It should be up and such like that to where he's going to get the carries that you need to make value. But that's it on the spend up.
Yeah. It's funny. It looks like looking at ownership projections, Nick Chubb on DraftKings, where he's 7-8. Now, on FanDuel, I would understand it if you just didn't want to pay $9K because everyone else is so much cheaper. On DraftKings, he's $100 more than David Montgomery for the most expensive running back, and that's active. And the ownership isn't looking too high. So I guess everybody's kind of biting into that narrative of the Jets being a pass funnel, which I believe and I've preached. But I'll acknowledge that Quinton Williams gone is a presence. And I'll also acknowledge this. The way their defensive schemes have changed. Like it was also due to their defensive Greg Williams why they were good against the run. He was calling schemes to kind of stuff it and make teams throw. They've been a little bit more, I don't know, I guess more balanced, I guess you could say. They're still kind of, they're just bad against everything. So, again, I'm not looking at the Rams game as like, oh, my God, they just played out of their minds. I think some guys had some good games, but it was also a lot of the Rams guys not playing very well. So, the game script, like you said, favors Chubb. It's hard to envision Cleveland not leading this game, even if it's a closer game than expected. Hard to envision them not leading. And that would be a game script that we've always all season chased for a guy like Nick Chubb. So I don't mind it. David Montgomery has been smashing, bro. He has been absolutely smashing. And he's playing Jacksonville. He's projected to be the most popular running back. That's terrifying. Now, don't get me wrong. He's had ownership the last few weeks, and he's been delivering. But now it seems like he's going to get the highest ownership on the slate almost at the position. He will, because people aren't, like, they're hesitant to play Chubb. You can run on Jacksonville. Montgomery's the only back ever since Tyreek Cohen went out. He's getting all the snaps, and so obviously in cash games he seems like a guy you would want to play. But what would you do in tournaments on him? Are you looking more overweight or underweight?
I mean, I think in tournaments you can fade him because there's two guys with the same prices that have just as good of matchups, or can be just as good of matchups. You have Jonathan Taylor at 7,500. He's, going up against the Steelers, who gave up a ton of rushing yards against the Bengals. But he's on the road, and it could be it's possible that if the Steelers get up, that it could be a Nyheim Hines game. You're not sure. But the guy that I think that could keep up with Montgomery this week is Miles Sanders at 7,300. He's got a matchup against the Cowboys with Leighton Vander Esch out, and we talked about this on Tuesday. You take out those linebackers for the Cowboys, and you're just going to be able to have running lanes all day with Sanders, and with the read option with Hurts. I feel like Sanders is a great play for a little bit less if you're going to pivot off of him in GBPs. I mean, like on FanDuel, it makes it so much easier. It's like $1,200 difference between him and Chubb, but on, it makes like Montgomery, I think, is going to be like the highest owned on FanDuel for sure. But GBPs, I feel like you can fade him just because in a couple of his games, like, he had an 80-yard run. It's kind of hard to predict that, like he's he had 32 rushing attempts last week. Like, I don't know if he's going to get that. I mean, it did go didn't that game go overtime or no? It was almost overtime, or it was really close. So I just don't see like the Jags like keeping up to the fact where Montgomery's going to be like all involved all the entire game. But he's a great cash play. The other guy in the mid tier that I'll talk about, that's a great GPP play. I mean, I guess if you were doing cash, I wouldn't kill you, especially on DK. But Austin Eckler, he is 7,600 on DK, so he's a little expensive. But on FanDuel, he's 7,000. He's going to get passed over in favor of Montgomery, Sanders, and Taylor just because of his price. But the Broncos are giving up 6.6 yards per carry and over 147 rushing yards per game the last 3 games. And then Eckler's averaging 7 receptions since he's been back from the IR. So you have a nice floor. The only thing that you're hoping for and you're praying to God is that he gets goal line carries. I mean, we were watching last Thursday night. Like, they were on the goal line twice. They didn't even give him one chance. They brought in Kalen Balaj. I mean, that just enrages them. I mean, you know what? If you want to give him one, if he doesn't get in, then get Balaj in there or whatever. But like, to not even give him one is very tilting. Is very frustrating. But I feel like he's a good GPP play. We know what the nice floor he provides when he's really heavily involved in the game, and then if he gets in the end zone, even better.
Yeah, man. I think a lot of these guys are definitely in play. I'll start off with Miles Sanders. I do like that call a lot, actually, especially because I think Jalen Hurts is in a really good spot, and I mentioned that Goff is one of my favorite tournament quarterbacks. So in tournaments, I do plan on playing him, and I'm a little nervous about not having some Eagle exposure against Dallas, especially with Van Der Esch out, because you figure Jalen Hurts or Sanders, one of those guys, if not both, is going to run all over Dallas, like you had mentioned. So I think Sanders kind of provides some leverage. Like if Jalen Hurts doesn't get the rushing yards or just doesn't get the touchdowns or whatever, good chance that Miles Sanders did it on the ground. Now, obviously, they could do it through the air as well. But I do expect Philly to be kind of leading in this, or at least in that situation where if they can run, they will. And I think they'll be in that situation most of the game. So Austin Eckler, I think on DraftKings it's fine, right? Like for the pass game work, but the touchdowns are obviously an issue. Who else? There was somebody else you had mentioned, I think. Jonathan Taylor. Yes, Jonathan Taylor. I expect him to have extremely low ownership. You know, it's funny. We talked about that game on the first look, and I've been struggling to find my way on the Colts side, and I think the only way I could really find is Jonathan Taylor. If I were to go to that game to stack it and look for the bring back. The Pittsburgh side, I don't have an issue. We'll get there at receiver, but the Colts side was tough, and I think Taylor would be the one I'd settle on. Antonio Gibson, some pretty interesting news, right? You got him and Mike Davis. We know Christian McCaffrey ended up getting ruled out. Gibson's questionable. Alex Smith is questionable. Terry McLaurin is doubtful. Carolina has been one of the worst rushing Ds in the league. So I think Gibson is also an interesting one to consider. I would expect even if he does play that we still see some McKissick and all that. But if you're under the mantra that Washington's defense plays well, I think Gibson and the Washington D could be an interesting correlation play. What else you see, Joe?
The other mid-tier running back that I think will be very popular, and I'm still not like fully all in. There's two of them actually. If you want to go in the mid-tier, is David Johnson at 6,700 against bad Houston team. The problem is that he got 11 receptions and 106 yards, and it was just a very different kind of game script that's not going to be that way. So I just don't really, I'm not buying into DJ as like a really safe play. Like I think he could do that, but he's going to have to do it more on the ground. Melvin Gordon now I think becomes very popular at 6,400. He has, if you look at his matchup, like Chargers are beatable. It's a revenge game. There's no Phillip Lindsay. So I feel like it sets up to where he can really do some damage. And then Le'Veon Bell. I mean, he's going to be at least first down and second down back. He's going to be in a game where they should be winning, and he's in the best offense in the league. At 6,400, it doesn't take a lot for him to make value. So I don't mind that at all. I mean, J.K. Dobbins is fine too, but I just feel like you have to temper expectations. James Conner makes a decent like GPP play, and I'll stop there.
Yeah, so obviously, like you hit the two on the head that I think I'm landing on a lot, and it's Melvin Gordon and Le'Veon Bell. On DraftKings, Melvin Gordon is 5'6". You'd mentioned number one, the matchup, revenge narrative, right? Obviously, it's narrative street, playing against the team that didn't think he was worth it, according to him. We know the Chargers have really struggled defensively. Melvin Gordon's expected to get a majority of the carries, and we would think that would definitely be true. Royce Freeman is questionable, and then we know Lindsey is expected to be out. So Melvin Gordon's 5'6" seems like a fucking awesome play, and I'll have plenty of him. With Le'Veon Bell, I'm a little more nervous. Like we saw him in this role with CEH out, like when he got hurt, and Bell didn't really look all that great on the showdown stuff, but like you'd mentioned, I really do think Atlanta is going to struggle offensively, and if they don't, and you don't have all your non-Mahomes teams are going to suck. If Atlanta comes out swinging, and you don't have Mahomes teams, like you're going to be fucked. But if Atlanta does struggle a little bit, and we do see the Chiefs kind of handily take take this game into their hands. We could see Bell get fed a lot, and he could be the reason that some of these other guys like Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, who are in phenomenal spots, don't do well. Now, Atlanta has been good against the run. They held Fournette to like 57 yards on 14 carries last week. However, Fournette did end up smashing, right? He still got in the end zone twice, and I think he had 3 catches, 5 targets. We could see Le'Veon Bell get a little bit more than that. We know he's comfortable catching the ball. Though I will give a disclosure, let's not forget that the Chiefs do have a couple other running backs that they are working in there. It's not like there's no one else. It has to be Bell. The Gordon situation is very different from the Le'Veon Bell situation. Gordon, Denver's depth is just not really there at running back. The Chiefs have some guys that they're more than comfortable playing who know the system. So I'll set the precedent there. But definitely 2 guys that are kind of highlighting this position. Joe, take us into Value Town. We have some guys that are kind of interesting on FanDuel. Gio Bernard's 6K, but on DraftKings he's 4.8. There's been a lot of buzz going around with the Atlanta running back situation of Ito Smith seeming to be taking that role over from obviously what's his name, fucking Todd Gurley. And on DraftKings, Ito Smith, a PPR site, is only 4K. 5K on FanDuel. Kansas City, one of the weaknesses on the defense has still been against the run. They're still 12th. Most fantasy points allowed to opposing running backs. Talk to me about and one other situation. Obviously, Cam Akers we know is out, which makes things a little more interesting. What are some of the value backs you're interested in?
Yeah, I mean, Darrell Henderson is a play that I feel like he's probably the best of the the value running backs. He'll probably have most of the backfield duties. Malcolm Brown will mix in there. It's a decent matchup. It's not a great matchup, but Seahawks are giving up the 5th most receiving touchdowns to running backs this season. Henderson should be the pass catching back, and you should be able to get 2x from him at his price, and you should be able to get what you need. I think he's a decent cash game option. The other guys you mentioned, I'm fine with. Gio, I think you're totally chasing. I think that was it's an anomaly. I'm just not really into it. And then what's on DK? What's Ungawali's price? Ungawali, the guy from the Jags.
Not even gonna try to say his name, but I'll tell you his price. He's 4K.
Yeah, he's 4K, and if he's going to be the starter, if James Robinson is out, we know like the volume that guy can get in his offense. So I feel like we need to be looking at the injury report on Sunday about Robinson. I know he's trying to play, but if not, I mean, I would prefer him over like Ito Smith, because Brian Hill's going to mix in there too, and. Didn't they say Gurley? I mean, Gurley's just not the starter, right?
Yeah. It doesn't mean he's not going to play. And it doesn't mean if he's not playing well that they don't keep him in there.
Mm-hmm. The starter means you're in there for the first play. Yeah. That doesn't really mean anything. Yeah. So it's like, don't really read that much into it. But it just means like he's had the hot hand. We're going to roll with him more.
Right.
So I just feel like if guy from the Jags, the starter, is in because of Robinson being out, we really got to look at that also as a good option. I think you do maybe need to pay down at one running back, but don't go dumpster diving for more than that.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of these guys in a team will do, unless I'll say this: unless you are looking for that Mahomes triple stack, which is certainly something you have to really consider. I'll probably have at least one of those. That being said, on DraftKings, I'm a little more interested in Gio. I do think it's a chase to a degree, but he's 4,800, and he happens to be playing a team that's really bad against the run. My concern with Gio is that Cincinnati, it's not just the running backs. Like even Joe Mixon, it's not like he was lighting it up this season. Obviously the volume is what you like in those situations, but Joe Mixon does it all himself. It's not like he has a great run blocking system here, So I worry about that. I also feel like if this game were to turn into a situation where Houston is leading significantly, I still think Gio would be in play because I do think they would throw it to him, especially with Tyler Boyd, being injured and his status being kind of up in the air at the moment. So, 4,800 on DraftKings. 6K on FanDuel, I'd agree with you. I think there's just better options. But 4,800 on DraftKings, I do think I'm interested. And the Ito Smith thing, man, at 4K, like I just like you said, there's so many things that can go wrong with that. Like he projects fairly well for us, but that projection is based with a lot of variance that he'll actually get the amount of snaps that he's projected to get, which we don't know. And I like the James Robinson backup call. Again, not going to try to say his name. He was supposed to be going into the season. He got hurt at the beginning of the season, but it was supposed to be more of a competition at running back between him and Robinson. It wasn't supposed to be so clearly Robinson, but or at least that was the talk. And then he got hurt and it became Robinson. That's it. But yeah, I'm with you. I think that there's some value guys to consider. I don't think we have to go too crazy here. In that Mahomes type build, that's probably where I would use like a Henderson Geo double pay down. Or something like that. But other than that, I'm with you. I think you grab one of these guys and then go back up to that mid-tier top range. What about receivers, Joe? Are you looking to spend up? We do have some studs here, right? We've got Calvin Ridley, Tyreek Hill, DK Metcalf. You looking to spend up in anyone here?
Okay, so I feel like if you just look at the receivers this week, and I'm going to look at it in a cash game sense, there's only one guy that you're going to look at spending up, and it's Calvin Ridley. He's 8,700. He's getting up there, but I mean, man, the guy's just been so clutch the last few weeks with Julio out the last 3 weeks. He's gotten over 10 targets every game and over 100 yards every game. And they're probably going to be playing from behind, and Julio's gone again. So, I mean, Chiefs, I don't know. They're going to decide to double or just maybe in the beginning of the game, but then they'll just let him throw to Ridley. They're not going to – he can't just beat us all. So I like Ridley because if you look at the other guys, Tyreek Hill's got a hamstring issue. If they get up, they'll probably pull him. Keenan Allen's got a hamstring. Do we really want to trust that again? DK Metcalf is probably in the hardest matchup of the week against Jalen Ramsey. Now, if you're a GBP guy, you're going to get it way low ownership even in this week, but he's got a bad matchup. So just don't, I'm a big DK fan, but temper your expectations when he's going up against Jalen Ramsey. So to me, it's Ridley or nothing if you're going to pay up, but I don't even think you need to.
Yeah, I think in cash games you're absolutely right. It's Ridley or nothing, especially you've got like even if you go down a couple tiers, like DK Metcalf's 7-8. Like I wouldn't do that in cash, obviously just in tournaments. But I get at that price taking shots. But again, this is like you said, the toughest spot he could draw. You then have Allen Robinson against Jacksonville. You're a little nervous about the way they've been running the ball. Keenan Allen's really banged up, and I know I'm bleeding down to like the lower tiers. But I think it's Hill or Ridley if you're paying up. I agree. Now, I'll throw Hill in the mix for tournaments. In cash games, it's clearly Ridley. But I will throw Tyreek Hill in tournaments because I think the hamstring injury could scare some people off. It's been said to have been more precautionary. And I'm a little worried, again, about Atlanta competing. I'm a little bit nervous about them playing on the road and the way this game ends up looking. But I would think that if Mahomes does well, that Tyreek is probably going to have at least a couple big plays. And if he gets ruled out, we'll have some mega value, which will make things a lot more interesting. But I'm with you. The spend-ups make me nervous. Your boy Keenan Allen, I would love to play Keenan Allen in this spot. We know Hunter Henry's out. It's just like I don't know. He seems pretty banged up, man. He was clearly a decoy last time out. And it really sucks because that other kid behind him was looking pretty good. Johnson, right? Is that his name? Look, Tyron Johnson. Yeah. Well, I mean, you're a Charger fan. What do you know about the Allen situation? Where are you at with that?
I mean, I feel like, it gets to a point where the Chargers don't really have much to play for, so they don't want to, put him out there for no reason. So I don't know what happened last week. You know what I mean? He looks into the camera and says, "Start me." And then he only plays 4 or 5 plays, so you just can't really trust it,
right.
So
I agree. Because, he's the one that, I don't play him, and then he's healthier than I thought, and then he's the one, right? Then we just talked about how bad Denver secondary is. He's clearly, Herbert's security blanket, him and Eckler. And I think because of the injuries, his ownership's going to be crazy low. So paying attention to his status, if you have an edge on how he's really feeling and how available he's going to be. Here's the other thing. There it is. I said it. I did say it. I did say edge. Here's the other thing. If you think he's not going to play, then you have a 4K receiver that just looks like the nuts this week, right? And Johnson. So if somebody can get the clear odds on that, I'll be digging over the weekend to see what I could find. But a lot of times the beat reporters are pretty vague with that kind of stuff because they don't know, especially in the COVID season. They're not getting as close to the players as they normally would. Take me to the mid tier, Joe, because there's a lot of potential. It's pretty loaded, the mid tier.
Yeah, the mid tier is where I think you might get at least 2 or your 3 receivers. Allen Robinson, he's questionable with a hamstring. He plays if he's healthy. Got a revenge game going against the team, the Jags, he used to play for. He's also got a great matchup. Robert Woods, another great matchup against Seattle. However, this week I prefer the guy at 6,800 in the better matchup, Cooper Kupp. He is $500 less. You need to save the money on this. He's been doing just fine the last few weeks. He's got just an easier matchup in the corner. He's still seeing his plenty share of targets and such. Tyler Lockett is once again just a big old, GPP play that could break free, but I'm not really with it. Terry McLaurin is doubtful with an ankle, so I'm not gonna really worry about him. Then the last 2 guys I'll talk about. One is Jarvis Landry. Great spot against a bad Jets secondary. Very safe cash play. We've seen what Baker does, throws to Landry. There's no Odell. There's not very many reliable pass catchers. So if you're not playing Chubb in cash, probably play Landry. And then probably my favorite mid-tier option. I hope I don't jinx his ass because he does tend to drop the ball, but the man gets volume and targets. Literally, Ben Roethlisberger wakes up in the middle of the night, throws a pass, my boy Deontay Johnson. So Deontay at 6,700, just lock him up. He is such a good value. What's his price on DK?
Deontay is 6'3" on DraftKings.
6'3". So is that like just mid tier? He's not even that high up.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
still a really good price for the consistent volume. Yes.
I mean, we say it all the time. I mean, he got benched for a half, and he still led the team in targets 2 weeks ago against Buffalo. So, like to me, like when you're looking for just, I feel like he is just he scored a touchdown even last week when the Steelers looked terrible. Deontay was agnostic to that. It didn't bother him. So Deontay Johnson, 6,700. Really like him. It's all about the mid tier this week, I think, in receiver.
Yeah, again, I agree. It's loaded here in the mid tier. I mentioned I like golf. Obviously, I'm really gonna like Woods and Cup, and in golf teams, I'll play them together against Seattle. I do have a preference towards Cup, though. Like you said, Joe, just in general, out of the slot, if I'm gonna pick one on a non-golf team, Jarvis Landry, I think will be more popular on FanDuel at 6'5" than on DraftKings at 6'9". But if you're playing Baker, you have to have him with Landry at this point. My favorite bring back from Seattle is actually Tyler Lockett. So obviously, if I'm playing golf, I want the game to shoot out to a degree. I keep my expectations realistic. I don't think the game has to be 80 points scored for golf and all these guys to hit their value. It could just be a very efficient game from 2 good offenses, which is what I hope to see. I know Tyler Lockett did not deliver the last time these guys played, but we did see him get significantly more targets than DK Metcalf. Lockett only caught 5 passes for 66 yards, but he had 9 targets. And that game was in LA. With Russ being at home, maybe we see a much stronger connection. Either way, we expect Lockett to have elevated targets this week because we know Metcalf has a really tough draw. So 6'6", I really like the idea in that golf team of the Golf Woods Cup, bring it back with Lockett, and just figure everything else out in that mid tier. We can go on here. You covered a lot of them, so I'm not going to repeat. But those are, just get that out there. What about over in Value Town?
Yeah, Value Town. Obviously, there's a couple guys obviously that you could look at. I mean, nobody really. We talked about Tyron Johnson. If Keenan Allen's out, he becomes a great play. The value guy that I like, and it's strictly volume, It's and it's a decent matchup too because they're missing their number one corner is T. Higgins. We have no Tyler Boyd. Even with a bad quarterback, I feel like T. Higgins, he's going to play every single snap of the game on Sunday. Like, it's just, you want that volume, you want that opportunity. So, T. Higgins at 5,800, he's probably my favorite, like, value guys. GBP wise, that's where you're going. That's where I'm hitting up, like, some of these Dallas receivers, Michael Gallup, CD Lamb. And I also don't mind Russell Gage now, being as it that no Julio, we have Gage again. I've been hearing some things about Jalen Reagor this week, and I don't know. I feel like Hurts likes Greg Ward a little bit better. At least he has a little bit more connection. But Reagor gets all the targets lately, so it's a little bit of pick your poison or pick whoever you want at that point if you're going to stack that game. But that's it.
It's funny because this is a week where I think a lot of people feel like they don't need the value at receiver because there's not really a ton of running backs they have to spend up for, and the mid-tier at receiver is pretty deep, and there's even value running backs people are considering, but it's pretty deep, at least on DraftKings, at this value tier. You mentioned T. Higgins against Houston. There's Crowder against Cleveland, who's 4,500 on DraftKings, been the target leader for the Jets all season. Darnell Mooney has scored touchdowns in, I think, 2 straight games. He's 4K. Greg Ward is only 4K. You got Brashad Perriman and Denzel Mims against Cleveland. Again, a secondary that's not very good at home. All sub 4K. There's some interesting guys. Jerry Jeudy's only 3.7. I know he's been the drizzling shits. Michael Gallup is only 41. We know Dalton's not afraid to throw it to him. We know that the secondary for Philly has not looked great in general. So there is that. It's funny. You even have Cam Sims, right, who if we expect him to kind of step in to be the number one receiver, technically, although I think McKissick may end up being the number one receiver if Alex Smith is a quarterback. But with McLaurin doubtful, 3,300 for Cam Sims, who had, I think, 7 or 8 targets in their last game. AJ Green is only 3,400 against Houston. There's actually a lot of value. And I think that could be interesting. We could see a lot of these guys go low owned if everybody goes to the guys up top. And, of course, if Tyreek Hill does miss or is announced to be limited, you also have the Mecole Hardmans and the DeMarcus Robinsons. I think Mecole would be the one I would prefer, but nonetheless, plenty of value if you need it. It's just a matter of if you need it. And we have value at every position. We even got a guy at tight end who we'll talk about on your team, Joe. That being said, take us over to tight end. What are you doing with Travis Kelce and the rest of the guys?
This week, I feel like for Kelce to really be in play is that we'd have to get like some extreme value open up somewhere else to where like, okay, well then now you're going to fit in Kelce because you get, a 4K guy at that price and stuff like that. Really, really cheap. So I don't mind Kelce. Obviously, you can always play him. So I'm not telling you not to, but they could take him out after a half. The only thing going for him is that he has a chance to be the leader in receiving yards for the NFL. So they might want to try and get him that record. The other tight ends, I'm just going to kind of go through it because it's kind of, I feel like the 2 tight ends that are really sticking out to me, besides the really value guy that we'll talk about, is Noah Fant and Logan Thomas. If we don't get any McLaurin, Thomas is going to get even more targets than he did. There's nobody there that, against Carolina. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is. And then last week, Noah Fant, if he can just stay healthy, he's like the only like really dependable pass catcher in that Denver offense. And this is coming off of a week where Darren Waller just took out his dick and dick slapped the Chargers all game last week. So Noah Fant at 6,200. Those are the 2 guys. I feel like those are the 2 guys like I'm really gonna try and get into my lineup. And then if Hayden Hurst, I think isn't a bad option, especially with Julio out. It's decent. I don't mind like Goddard. Those are like other guys that you could just throw like, dart throws because they could fall into the end zone twice. Goddard still leads the team in targets every single game. So one of these days he's going to, get 2 from Jalen. Hopefully it's this week because I'm playing them both in my fantasy league. So, um, and then we got, the obvious spend down option that everybody's going to love to go to now because Hunter Henry is out, is Donald Parham of the Chargers. He's 4,200. He's going to be the starter. If Henry's not off the COVID list, and I think that he's a tall 6'8" guy, and he's a good red zone opportunity. If you think about it, all he's got to do is catch a couple balls, and if he gets in the end zone, it's even better. So I don't mind that at all, especially if you're going to try and fit in. I mean, if you're doing like a double spend up and you wanted to get in Kelsey, then you could put in Parham, I guess, if that's what way you wanted to go. But if you wanted to like spend up and put in one of these higher price receivers like Ridley and stuff, pair him with Chubb or whatever, you'd have to pay all the way down for somebody like Parham, and that's just the way to go. If you want to pay down.
Yeah, I agree. I think what it comes down to with Parham is really all these tight ends. Cole Kmet, who played like 100% of the snaps despite only getting 2 targets last week. Zach Ertz, who had 7 targets despite only catching like 3. These guys compared to the Cam Sims, the Laviska Shenaults, the whatever 3-6 guy, 3-4 guy, AJ Greens that we talked about. Because I think it's a situation where, like, if I was going to do a Mahomes stack and I wanted Kelsey, I probably would consider doing 2 tight ends and Kelsey in the flex and then playing a Cole Kmet or somebody like that to get me there. I do think that there's a lot of these guys in play, and I like Parham. I do. 2,500 on DraftKings. I really like that. But I also think that it's going to lower the ownership on some of these other dudes who are just a little bit more expensive and have more solidified, consistent roles, like Cole Kmet and some of these other guys. So definitely a decision to make. I'm gonna definitely have some Kelsey teams. Number 1, because Atlanta's had a weakness against tight ends most of the season. Number 2, because like you said, they are chasing records with Kelsey. So I'll definitely get some Kelsey. But after that, I'm looking more at the Dallas Goddards, the Austin Hoopers, who's in a phenomenal spot. And of course, I don't hate the idea of using Hayden Hurst as my bring back from the Atlanta side. Like, I don't really want to invest too much money on that side of the ball. I don't mind using Hayden Hurst as my bring back. With Julio Jones out. So I may actually give that a shot when we're done with this. But yeah, again, like there's plenty of options. Joe, last question I'm going to ask you about is defense, and then we'll get into game stacks and all that good shit.
This just in, Alvin Kamara just scored another touchdown.
Yeah. Still from the toilet.
Dude, imagine if he was like on like the main slate.
Oh my gosh. Like, it's broken. But you know what? I'm not just saying this. Like, Joe, you I mean, anybody that does all these shows, you, Paulie, one of my favorite things to do is go back to chalk that bust the week before. So you better believe, not that Kamara was a terrible bust, but obviously it was a letdown. We expected him to do a lot more. I would have been all the fuck in on Kamara. I matter of fact, I was in the showdown. I had him 100%. I think I had him like 35% of the captain. Only reason I didn't play him more is because I knew he would be popular. But for me, I would have definitely been all in on Kamara in that spot. Just because last week I would have felt like this week people might back away, but that means nothing because it wasn't on the main slate.
Yeah. Yeah, defense this week, you it's possible that you can maybe spend up a little bit. There's no like really great spend down options at defense this week. I mean, I've heard people just throw the Jets in there at 3,000 and they maybe could get you a couple sacks and get you 2 or 3 points. I don't know about that this week. I think you might need to spend it a little bit. I mean, obviously at the top, the Ravens is fine. They're going up against Daniel Jones and, maybe his hurt leg, and you might see Colt McCoy, but they're 5,000. The Browns I think Sam Darnold, they're more competent as an offense and just it's okay. Like the Washington football team, I think is fine, but you just don't know where their head is at now that, that their quarterback was seen at a strip club all week. And it's a Ron Rivera revenge game, so it might not be a bad option. The Bears is also not a bad option too. They're on the road against Jacksonville, which we know is a bad offense, but I'm not really in love with them. The 2 defenses I'm in love with, I like this week. the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Kansas City Chiefs. I know that they're probably going up against two offenses that people say that are really good, but the Steelers are at home, and they're a very prideful like group. And the right tackle for the Colts was just put on the COVID list, and that's the same spot that TJ Watt is going to be up against or was going to be up against. So to me, I feel like you have a statue, Rivers, that they're either going to have to get the ball out of his hand really quickly, or he's going to get sacked all game. So I like the Steelers' defense to bounce back. And with the Chiefs, it's Matt Ryan on the road in a cold weather game against the Chiefs. Like I could just see them getting a pick six, fumble return. It just seems like that kind of like Kansas City defensive type of game. All the other defenses, I can't really buy. I'm not really into it. They're either on the road or just in bad options, bad situations. I'm not really into it. I think that's probably where I'll spend. I'll probably just stay right there.
So my defensive pool is not going to be big. I'll starting up top. Like obviously the Bears are an ideal situation, but I don't know if I want to spend up that money like you said on a team on the road, even if it's Jacksonville. Especially as a Jet fan, I always want to leave hope that we didn't completely fuck ourselves. Even though I'm 90% sure we did, you always want to leave that hope that Jacksonville could actually maybe win a game. But shout out to the Bear fans. Highly doubt it. That being said, my favorite defense is going to, like point per dollar wise on DraftKings, is the Washington football team. Like you said, no McCaffrey. You got the revenge narrative for Riverboat Ron. Who wants this? Like he's that kind of dude. No question. He's that kind of dude. He fucking wants this. And Washington's defense is fucking good. Not to mention, we have really seen the Carolina offense take a huge drop off, right? Like they were pretty impressive even without McCaffrey, and we're like, oh shit, Teddy's doing it. We haven't seen it as much, right? Like that's not taking anything away. It's just the situation that they're in. So Washington's my favorite, and the punt defense on DraftKings. If I was gonna punt and I was desperate, like in a Mahomes team, let's say, where I just really had to save my defense, I think I would actually consider the Bengals defense at 2,300 now. It's a chase off of last week, but that's the only way, right? That they've somehow built this momentum, and now they're gonna just finish out the season pretty strong. And we know that we expect. One thing I'll say about this, they've had games where they've really gotten destroyed, but similar to some defenses on bad teams, like a lot of it is a wear down factor. Their team was just worn down because their offense was inept for that game or whatever the situation may be. So again, this isn't me saying, oh, I love the Bengals defense. This is me saying that if I had to make a decision between getting a few $100s to be able to get a better receiver or a better tight end or whatever on a team I really liked that I spent a lot of money on, I would consider dropping down to them. But again, my favorite defense right now, probably point per dollar, got to be Washington at 3K. I'll let you, boy. All right, Joe, it is time to pick our favorite game stacks, and then you and I will do a little best bets, and then we'll get the fuck up out of here. So talk to me about your favorite game stacks as of now.
Yeah, my favorite game stacks, there's not too many. It's a very kind of spread out slate. I like the Atlanta KC game. Obviously, I just feel like it's kind of easy. You go Ridley with, Mahomes and maybe either Kelsey or Hill, and then just fill in everywhere else, like value or wherever else you go. The Denver Charger game, I think is good too. You could go with like Fant and Eckler with Herbert, or Tyron Johnson, depending on what the news is with Keenan Allen, maybe Mike Williams if he plays. Rams Seattle, you're really doing a lot of teams. I don't mind too, just because you have Goff with Cup and Woods, and then you can bring it back with Lockett or DK. And Philly Dallas, I think with Hurts, with Goddard, or one of the receivers, bring it back with like Gallup or Lamb. It's kind of cheap too if you think about it.
Yeah. I mean, my number one for tournaments obviously is the Seattle Rams game. We talked about that. I definitely think, obviously, if Goff's my favorite tournament quarterback, I like that game. And talked about both receivers with the Tyler Lockett bring back. And then the next is the Jet game to me. Now, I'm a little torn because in this situation, obviously Baker would be the quarterback that you feel the most comfortable with. But I do think Joe has a really good point with Nick Chubb, and this team does like to run. And again, this is about me just not being sold on the Cleveland defense. I just don't think they're very good. And I think we'll see that in the playoffs. I know, again, I watched, what's his name, Colt McCoy move the ball with virtually any talent. And just, again, didn't have a talent to get in the end zone. But I think Darnold, maybe a little bit confidence, this Jets team coming off that. So really it's about price. Like, you can go Baker and go the more expected route, or you can get really different and try a Sam Darnold with a Crowder who's really cheap on DraftKings. And this is more of a DraftKings thing because you're looking for touchdowns on FanDuel, and there's no guarantee the Jets ever score any touchdowns. But again, PPR site, if Darnold's able to get you even a 20 on a slate like this, if all the quarterbacks don't crush you, if it means you getting more than the rest of the field, or it means you getting that extra player, or even just leads you to be able to play a Nick Chubb, who I think, to Joe's point, is going to be under-owned on this slate because of people on FanDuel because of the price and on DraftKings because of the perception of the Jets. But, so I think that game would be the other one I'll go with. Any best...
I mean, also with Chubb, he doesn't catch a lot of passes. So on DK, people just don't.
It's true.
Him. He's got to score 2 touchdowns.
It's true. He's almost always under-owned than what he should be. Oh, almost always. He's like almost never chalk. You're right. People, and Kareem Hunt has been at several times because people have it drilled in their mind that he's going to get targets. Any best bets for this week?
Yeah, I got the Rams winning the game outright over Seattle.
I love that one.
So I'll take the point, but I like the Rams just winning the game outright. I like the over in the Tennessee Green Bay game. And I like the over in the Denver Chargers game.
I like it. I mean, I really like the Rams. That was my favorite one going into it. Forget about fantasy. I guess it's sort of correlated, but just in general, when looking at those lines, I don't see how the Rams don't come out and win this game after having lost to the Jets. Like, I think we see why they lost to the Jets, and it's because they were really fucking focused on this one. So yeah, I like the Rams. There wasn't a ton else that I really liked. I do like Washington. I've been a little nervous, but with the lines moving. But I'll say Washington -1. I kind of feel like a fish for that one, but not nearly as confident in that one as I am in the other one. Oh, you know what? I did skip over probably my second favorite bet on the slate is the Steelers. I think the Steelers win this game. I really do. I think the Steelers are at home. Ben Roethlisberger always plays better at home. They're coming off a nasty loss similar to what the Rams just did.
And they're underdogs.
Underdogs at home.
I think the last time the Steelers with Ben have been underdogs.
They were just undefeated. You can argue they were the worst undefeated team ever. That's whatever. That's neither here nor there. Look at them for where they are now at the season. Look at this matchup for what it is. And like you said, the Steelers, you're getting a point. You're getting them as underdogs against the Colts in a game that they have to have. So, yeah, I like the Steelers, and the Rams are my two favorites. And then I'll say Washington as my little square bet, I guess. But that's going to do it, Nation. Appreciate those of you who are hanging out with us live, doing it dirty. Shout out to those of you who are watching this after the fact. We still got a couple days for the main slate. Again, go check us out at whitestick.com. Joey's doing the cash game article as always. Paulie will be doing the GPP breakdown. I got my core plays article. We do have content. We have projections, cheat sheets, all that good stuff for download at whitestick.com if you remember. We also have some coverage for the 3-game slate. I wrote a core plays article already for Saturday. We have projections out for that as well. So make sure that you go over there, take advantage. We have week passes. You could try it out for the week and, get an idea for what it is. And, of course, when you're ready, we've got all sports passes so you get some NBA action mixed in with this as well. That being said, Joe, I'm going to kick it to you for any closing statements, and we'll get out of here.
Not much, man. Just everybody have a very happy, Christmas weekend. I am playing in my championship game in my fantasy football league, my home league, so I'm very excited for that. Unfortunately, the guy I'm playing had Irv Smith, so he had a good start with 2 touchdowns.
Oh, God.
But I'm going to come back.
You got to come back and drop a dirty arm, that's all. And good luck to those of you in championship week. If you're in the championship, shout out to you. It's been a grind. And best of luck from the Wise Take Nation. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. we'll see plenty of you guys before the new year, so we'll get to that in another week. For Patio Joe, for myself, the entire Wise Take Nation, as always, good luck.
Yeah.